Good morning and welcome to Tinker Talks, a podcast that discusses all things Tinker. It's a place to find out what goes on behind the fence at one of the Air Force's largest bases and the home of Oklahoma's largest single-site employer. Twice a month we bring you airmen stories and information you want or may need to know. So this morning, 24 years ago today at 9:02 a.m., the world as we knew it in Oklahoma, and the country for that matter, was forever changed. A truck sitting outside the Alfred P. Murrow building exploded, leaving 168 people dead and hundreds more injured. Joint task forces were formed quickly and put into action as police and rescue workers moved into action at the site. As we remember that sad day this morning, we are joined here by three very special guests whose lives were forever changed that morning. Justin Dulworth, Brad Vance, and Jimmy Westervelt were working here at Tinker Air Force Base as firefighters when they got the call to respond, to go downtown and continue to be a part of Team Tinker to this day. So, gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Special episode. So first off, hats off to you guys for having been there and been a part of this, but can you take me through what you were doing that morning when the truck exploded, and how was it you guys were called into action?
I personally had gotten off duty that morning from a 24-hour shift at 7 a.m. Lived on the south side of Oklahoma City at that point, so got there about 8, going about my normal business to start my day, and definitely felt something and heard something. And knew something bad had happened. Decided to go ahead and head back on into work. I mean, it was that big. So,
okay. I was at on duty at Station 2. We had Station 2 and Station 3 were combined during a remodel phase of Station 3 at the time, so we had a lot of people there. We were outside cleaning the trucks, cleaning the floor, our normal duty days stuff, and Chief Ingram came outside, and we couldn't hear it. We didn't hear it there because there was an aircraft running up on the ramp, and he came out and told everybody to get inside. We showed us what was on TV, and he said, "Grab everything you need, get in the rigs," and we headed to Station 1. And on our way to Station 1, the crews up there had already taken off for downtown. So, and then that's where the day started for me.
Okay. And you're Justin.
Justin, yes.
I'm Brad.
You're Brad. Okay. And then what about you?
Yeah, right off the bat, down at Station 1, I believe they had, I honestly can't remember back when how many trucks they sent out, but initially a couple of trucks, obviously got details more as we went along.
So you came back to work because you obviously felt something big had happened. So, I mean, how many minutes was it between the time you felt something odd had just happened to the time that you guys were already moving downtown? And how did that happen? Like, how was it that you guys became involved? Was this something that was already pre-scheduled? Was it pre-worked? Did you guys train this before?
We never had trained for anything like this. Nobody had at that point. I mean, urban search and rescue teams were not as relevant as they are today, so that was not. They were in place, but not. We didn't have anything here in the state or even in the department. But how we were notified and how, just by the television, we didn't ask to go. We didn't get, called from Oklahoma City or anything. We just self-deployed, as did every metro department around here, and for miles and miles and miles. They were from the state, from border to border on the state line, that everybody showed up. I mean, in some form or fashion. There was departments that you'd never heard of that were there. initially, and then out-of-state resources started showing up. I do believe that night and through the next day there was other task force units that showed up. But for us locally, Chief Goodbread at the time told the staff to send the first two, I think it was 3 units down there, if I'm not mistaken,
I couldn't remember.
immediately. And so we basically self-deployed, and that's not something that we condone to do, but we've made arrangements for mutual aid assistance. But at that point, we knew that they knew it was chaos, and that was not. They needed the help and needed assistance.
Yeah, it was something that didn't need to be requested or said. It just, everybody, like, I knew to come back to work, and you knew to go, and it was almost overwhelming for them to try to get their hands wrapped around so many departments coming in at one time to help.
How did that happen? So what happens? You guys all get down there, and how many from Tinker went that time? I mean, you guys are the last 3 here.
So 3 trucks. That would be initially about a 12-man
crew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm sure you have
and we
some
still had
chief
to cover
officers.
this base. I mean, so we had to leave some of our assets behind.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a day!
Mm-hmm.
So you get down there, and obviously everybody then knows what's happened. You could see the smoke. You could see it, the chaos. But what happens when you guys get on scene? Like, take me through that.
Well, Captain Westervelt, he was on the first rotation that went down there immediately after it happened. Justin was on the next one that night, and I was, I believe, on another one later on in the evening or the early morning on the 20th.
Okay. So were the trucks part of putting out
No,
fires?
no. I mean, there really at the time really wasn't. I mean, there's a handful of spot fires, automobiles here and there, but 100% of it went into recovery, rescue, and you just basically had your leaders, your captains at the time, your station chiefs at the time, basically form plan once we got on scene. Tried to coordinate as much as they could with their command system, but like they said, it was pretty much a chaos situation. I thought they did great after you sit back and look at with the amount of resources that were available right off the bat. I don't think anybody can plan for such a mass chaos incident. I mean, we train, I don't know, monthly, just say monthly on stuff like this here on Tinker, but until it happens. And then, you form a plan and, you set out to achieve it, of course. So
That incident changed how departments nationwide react and handle situations like that and prepare, because nothing had ever, of that size had happened before.
Right. So how long did you guys stay down there and work through search and rescue?
My first rotation, I was telling the guys I really couldn't. There's a lot of stuff that just hits me. The timelines are kind of rusty, but I want to say that I'm pretty sure I stayed almost a 72 hour, and it might have been a 48, but somewhere in that area. Then that's when our leadership came up with a rotation, and I asked y'all the other day, 12
we
hours,
went to 12 hours.
about 12-hour shifts.
But the initial 2-3 days, it was everybody, like I said before, I remember sleeping on a church step across from the building with Justin, just trying to catch sleep where you can. And then they started to get a little handle on setting up crews and such and rotations, so to not have fatigue and stuff like that.
Right? Were you guys able to eat? I'm guessing
Yes.
get a little bit of water in you.
I do believe. I mean, everybody knows the Oklahoma standard, but that's where it was.
That's crazy.
That's where it was established. I mean, there had been tornadoes before that, obviously, but this is where the Oklahoma standard started. There was more food and drinks and equipment. Anything you needed was available for everybody that was on scene.
I mean,
I mean,
yeah.
it
From
was,
phones to,
yes.
I mean, cell phone service, obviously back then in '95, I mean, almost was kind of new.
It
You know, I
was,
mean, the
yeah.
pagers were going out of, you know, but, you know, we had, and of course, I don't know the carrier, but, you know, they were, I mean, your phone ain't working, here's a new one.
Yeah,
You know, I
it
mean,
was,
it's just,
it was exactly the way it was.
Yeah.
You need gloves, you need anything. And there were
Anything.
hardware stores that were just bringing semis
Yeah.
of stuff down
There
there.
was, there
No
was
accountability.
the parking garage at the Southwestern Bell building was
Mhm.
basically a department store
Mhm.
of equipment, food, anything you needed. I mean, you name it, you could get it, and you had no need for anything. So
Yeah, and that was another thing. You know, they sit there and you might ask for a pair of gloves, and at the end of the day, before you even finish that, you got 3 pairs. You know, it's just you didn't ask for it, but that's just kind of generosity. And like he said, the Oklahoma standard.
First couple of days, and the cell phones were nice just because you wanted to be able to
Mhm.
call your family members really quick and say, I'm okay, this is what's going on, because there was no other way to contact anybody.
Well, a lot of
All that-
times we left our stuff. You know, a lot of the guys left their stuff to get down there. You know, that's just part of being on a response team.
How were your families during this time? I mean, were they pretty concerned? Were they trying to get down? And
Oh, my
see
wife,
you?
because when I left the apartment that morning, you know, when we got sent down, she hadn't heard from me for probably a day and a half. And when you finally got a hold of a cell phone to call and say, hey, I'm okay. I mean, that was my fiance then, but now my wife. Yeah, I remember breaking into tears and crying. Yeah.
When you guys now, obviously, when you're down there and you're right in the thick of all this, and probably not an awful lot of time to think too much about what's happening, but looking back on it, I mean, how much does it mean to you to see a community, Tinker and all of Oklahoma community, come together like that, even between departments and firefighters and just local civilians?
I was pretty amazed. I was active duty Air Force at the time, a firefighter, but not from this state. So I got here in '92. I'd only been here 3 years when this happened. It's pretty amazing to see the state come together like that. We're blown away.
Right. And now, so you guys are down there. Had any training you'd ever been through in your life prepared you to go in and start pulling concrete and rubble and you know what? I'm assuming you would run across, you know, unfortunately deceased people, but for that kind of cleanup and rescue effort, period. Anything you'd ever gone through prepped you for that?
for Tinker, we had not done anything like that. I mean, that's not something that we had prepped ourselves for. Besides, you know, some, you know, search of a facility, but this was not a facility. This was, you know, a war zone. You know, rubble. I mean, that's just not the typical search that we would do, but we try to, you know, employ that as much as possible of searching certain areas in grid fashion, just to help clear certain areas. So, but no, there was nothing that we had done up to that point to prepare us. So, and since then, you know, the fire service has evolved to be prepared for something like this. But at the time, no.
How is the training changed now? What do you guys do now on Tinker, and are you now involved with off-base coordinated training?
We had at the time 12 members of this department were part of Oklahoma Task Force 1 that was born out of this event. It was started in Oklahoma City. It's a joint task force with Tulsa Fire Department. We have members on that. We don't have any right now. We have some individuals that are wanting to get back in, but it was a full-fledged structural collapse technicians and rescue task force leaders, and that prepare for structural collapse, canine search, technical rescue aspects, and we were heavily involved in it for at least 10 years or so. We did a ton of training. It was we had monthly training sessions that we did at Oklahoma City training facility. Did several deployments for off-site training. At the time, we didn't have any big disasters. There was a few tornadoes that we did assist with, some grid searches and stuff like that, ice storms. But recently, the task force has been heavily tasked with some outside state assistance in Texas and for the Houston floods, and they have really stepped up their game, and they've been involved quite a bit. So hopefully we have more individuals here in the department that get involved in the near future.
Awesome. So were any of you down there able to be involved with rescuing people? I mean, were you able to find people down there?
I never did. I never came across any, rescues.
I was in the basement, and we had located an individual that was not removable. And once they were located, it was passed on. We finished that area, and then there was a major plan to get this person out, and it was a daunting task to do it. That is still a very vivid memory to get this person out. And it took forever. It was something I'll never forget. I mean, then there was other parts of the area at the beginning where you saw, pieces, so to speak, I guess, and remnants of individuals. So
That's tough, hard to prepare. No way to prepare for that. So you move past that. What kind of after action? Like, I know there were a lot of counselors and psychologists and lots of mental health people that were called in at that time to help everybody that was involved. What did you guys? What happened out here, or were you guys involved with at least getting some help to kind of get yourself through it?
Yeah, there was a lot of debriefings. They did call in professional CISM teams, critical incident stress management teams, just to bring us together and try to talk and not keep it bottled up. And so there was a pretty good call for that.
once you were done with your rotation, I do believe it was at the Southwestern Bell building. You had to go down there before you left the site, or it could have been 5 minutes, it could have been an hour, whatever it took for your crew and team. They had just rooms available for every
It wasn't
crew.
even an option. You went.
You had to go that before you could check out. And I think that started on the third or fourth day, somewhere in there, that there was stuff available. And then we did have a few sessions here.
Yes.
In the weeks following.
The chapel provided some of that. So.
And was it helpful? Was it a big benefit? I mean,
Definitely didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt.
I found it a little bit better when you got back and
Because a lot of us
with the guys.
It's just in our nature to bottle stuff up, and that's what we do.
Yeah, just talk to one another seemed to help out a little bit better.
did you guys find that your bond grew better, stronger as a team here?
I think anytime you go through just even a house fire, once you get back, you're sitting there chit-chatting about it, your bond always grows.
There's a brotherhood.
Yeah, there's a brotherhood. So yeah, I would say so.
Well, you guys are pretty strong anyway. I mean, as far as a cohesive closeness,
Sure.
you are definitely well known. And I think it's nice to say that since those days, you know, unfortunately, Oklahoma City kind of started a path of a couple bad incidents in this country. But what it did do, I think, was it really raised a big awareness to community. And I mean, fire and rescue people are thanked for their service often now. And I don't know, maybe you guys know, was that something that happened prior to when these types of incidents happen, and that people see exactly how big and daunting your jobs are and what professionals you are? I mean, it's almost to the military level of,
I think it comes and goes. When there's something bad happens, it reaches a peak, and it's really put out there, and people do see it then, and say something, but then it comes to a lull. Then when something else happens, it comes back up. But you still get that recognition. But when something bad happens, whether it's here or anywhere else, you still, it does go up and down.
Right.
So
that's very selfless service, but truly huge. So how would you say that incident impacted your lives personally moving forward?
For me, I mean, it's, it is a career event, and it is, that made, a definition for me that I'm never going to be able to forget that call, that day, those weeks of being part of that. Some people, the individuals we have now, will never experience that, and this is something that I'll never forget. And I always have that, to add to my bucket list, that I've made a national event, even though it was horrific. That's just not what a lot of firefighters, police officers, EMS personnel ever get to say. There, even though there was thousands of us down there, that's just something that I can say I was a part of. Does it take a toll on a person? It absolutely does. I mean, it's there are definitely after effects that it's had on myself, and I know other individuals, and there's haunting memories every so often. There's it has subsided over the 20-something years, so but it still does. You have triggers that bring you back. Obviously, the anniversaries as of today, but there's other things that still trigger memories and thoughts and things of what I saw, what we saw during that time frame.
We really don't talk about it amongst ourselves a lot, but just in preparing for the newspaper article recently, we found out some things that we have in common. Obviously, the after effects, psychologically, I mean, sleep issues or stuff like that. But the fact that none of us have been to that area again in 24 years, I didn't realize. I kind of thought it was just me.
Right.
We subconsciously avoid that area. It's just kind of funny that we all had it in common. I've never been to the memorial. I don't plan on going. I think it's the same with these two also. So I mean, we go to, it's not the whole area. We go to Bricktown and stuff like that and do things down there. But that radius of that block,
Right.
Go around it.
Yeah. You as well.
Most definitely. I mean, it's it's one of those things where we all have kids, and we want them to be able to understand and learn the history of what had actually happened. And I myself, I both mine have been down there, but as far as me, I just choose not to. It's no disrespect to anybody. It's just something that I'm not ready yet. But I'll sit down and I'll talk to my kids about it, and they'll ask questions. And sometimes it's hard to explain to them, what you did, but you just let them know that you were down there to do a service, and the old cliche, do your job. We say that all the time. It's our job, but at the end of the day, we were outnumbered by civilians 5-1, and they were doing not their job. They were doing what came to them, as far as helping other people initially. But as far as the after effects, I'm kind of like Chief Dogworth. I mean, it's to the point where as time goes by, it does lessen, or we're suppressing it still, which we might be, or I might be. But at the end of the day, unless we bring it up, like Major Vance says, we rarely talk about it. This is actually the first time I've ever sat down, talked to a podcast or, a news personnel or something like that. So anyway, but it's just one day at a time type deal.
Yeah. So did that event, all you guys were, it's 24 years, and none of you are retired yet. So did that event in any way shape or change your opinion of whether you were going to stay in rescue, or was that already decided?
We talked about it earlier. We were all so young in our career. When you're younger, hey, I can do this. This ain't gonna define me. I become a fireman. I'm gonna fulfill that dream. And but as you go on, it might bother you to a point, but it's not ever going to bother me to the point where I have to retire out of it. Now we talked about it. I think we had a handful that did retire out due to it. But like I said, we were young in our careers, so we just wanted to, keep on going.
That's resiliency at its finest.
Mm-hmm.
You train in resiliency
mm-hmm.
as much as you train in fire and rescue. So that's awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you all for sitting down and talking with me today. I know it's tough. Tough to revisit some of those old emotions, and we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your lives, and oddly enough, for having gone 24 years without really even sat down collectively to discuss it. So that's great. It's a great story, and I know everybody appreciates, they appreciate you now for what you do, but certainly 24 years later, still appreciate it for what you and your families had to endure that day.
I will add, though, that, the department, we were heavily involved, but the base itself, there was thousands of individuals on this base that helped out in some form or fashion. They may not have been directly involved into the rescue, but in the support of it. And without the base's support, our support wouldn't have been possible. And, that was, a big plus for Tinker itself. And that was, something that, everybody that's part of Tinker Air Force Base, they should be proud of as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we lost two of our airmen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we were one of the holding places there.
Yes.
For a short period of time. So yeah, Tinker was steeped into this thing for sure, but that is an excellent point that it shouldn't go unsaid, that the entire base and thousands of people here were heavily involved.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without them. So.
Right. So that's going to do it for this month's episode. Thank you for joining us. Please let us know if there's any other kind of stories that you all out there would like to hear, or any information that you would like to hear on this podcast. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So with that, have a great rest of your day and week. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.